We have Dick Foley, Dave Mathis, Matt O'Brien, J.R. Romano. The order of things will be J.R., Matt, Dave, and Dick, and then it will reverse on the close. So J.R., I'm going to ask you to open.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming today. Obviously, there's no better place you all want to be than here tonight talking about the future of the Republican Party. One of the things I think is often discussed is what exactly the role of the party chairman is. And a lot of times what people don't understand is the balancing act. You have to be able to negotiate between House and Senate leadership, between RTC chairman and RTC members, between state central members, between House candidates, Senate candidates. You also have to be able to keep grassroots activists happy and engaged. One of the things that we did in 2018, for those that don't know, we made over 500,000 voter contacts. We increased Republican turnout by 10%. Now granted, 2018 was very disappointing, I think, for all of us. It hurt a lot. But we learned a lot. And one of the first things we did after 2018 is we essentially held 8 regional meetings where activists came to us and said, and we asked the question, what can we do better? And we answered, and we listened. And one of the things that we discovered was we have a culture problem. And since 2018, we've done something around about 100 trainings, talking with RTC members and RTC chairmen about how to become more effective as town committees. The thing that we heard most is it's hard to get local people activated and engaged. And so we've been training town chairmen how to do that, how to recruit. We've been training RTCs on how to go out and identify voters and work locally. Now, one of the things that we often get is questions about how to do things. How do you message this? And there's some really difficult situations that the chairman has to deal with. Candidates come to you with things that are actually pretty scary when someone's running for the first time and doesn't know that you have to be able to provide advice. You have to have the experience and patience to do this job. It is not easy. When you have House and Senate leadership maybe disagreeing on an issue, when you have 17 candidates running for governor, it is a very difficult task to measure. And I think the thing that no one here would argue is we were in uncharted waters in 2018 in terms of the numbers of candidates that we had. But the state party shot right down the middle. We allow the people to choose. One of the other things that no one understands, when I took over in 2015, we only had 1,000 donors. That's it. Our party was 100% reliant on major donors. And the major donors can be finicky. Sometimes when they don't get what they want, they disappear. I'll give you a prime example. I talked to a major donor that had consistently given me money for 4 years. He's not giving anymore. Because he said, the only way I'll give is if you become pro-toll. That is a real conversation I had. And the beauty of growing the state party donor list from 1,000 members to 3,000 members, I can afford to say no. I can afford those $5 a month programs, the small dollar donors, the people that matter the most, our activists, our town committee members, have a greater say when the party is not 100% reliant. And that's exactly where it was in 2015, where 90% of our donations came from Fairfield County. That is not the case anymore. And it provided a unique opportunity for activists to have a greater say in who picked our candidates. Thank you. I hope to have some great questions.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt O'Brien. I am the chairman, just to introduce myself, I'm the chairman of the Coventry Republican Town Committee. I am a financial advisor and I'm a conservative activist. I've worked with numerous candidates in the past and I have a real passion for helping Republicans and working hard within the party any way that I can. I think we're all here running to improve the Republican Party. I think that I think all of the people running against Mr. Romano tonight see something wrong that has been done in the past, especially in recent time. There's a number of problems. We are lacking in our ground game significantly. Funding, we're not raising enough money. We are underfunded by $4.8 million when it comes to our Democrat opposition. We're losing ground. We've lost ground significantly in recent years. We've rolled back the number of seats that we hold, state representatives and Senate. And we're losing the goodwill of voters. They're losing confidence in us as a party to win elections in general. And it's a real problem, and it's going to be a huge problem for us in the coming years. We have to focus on improving the party, getting people motivated again, getting them out to vote, and reactivating RTCs. As an RTC chairman, I know that there are a lot of RTCs out there that do not work as hard as they possibly can. I see major problems in statewide races. Bob Margolis, for example, who ran for state rep out of Avon, there was no one on the ground. There was no one on the ground out there. I was there and I saw it personally. That race was winnable. And there's numerous other races that we failed in as well, and there was no excuse for it. There was no concerted effort to get people out there on the ground to do the work that needed to be done, to knock doors, to hold signs by the sides of the road. It was if you were there yourselves, you would share the reasons why, in particular, that I'm running for chairman, because I know that these things can be addressed quickly. We need to build the party back. We can't rely on RTCs, as much as I think that we often try to. RTCs are so focused on their own municipal elections. We need a mirror party, a mirror organization that can work alongside RTCs but carry out the mission of the state party. And we can rely on specific individuals, specific volunteers that are going to go out and be there for Bob Margolis, and be there for any candidate that's running in a statewide election that needs help. Candidates aren't getting a ton of money in CEP. They get enough for flyers and mailers. They don't get enough for volunteers to pay people to go and knock doors. It's not enough money. We have to be there as Republicans. And it's our responsibility to organize that and make sure it happens. So I look forward to questions tonight, and thank you so much for having me.
Good evening, I'm Dave Mathis. I am originally from Salisbury. We still have a house up on Twin Lakes. We didn't have the debate tomorrow night. I will be going up there after this. I am someone who's also lived in Westbrook for 16 years. We just sold a house in Westbrook in December. That's Westbrook, near Old Saybrook, not Westport. And we just moved to Darien 4 years ago. So the rumor going around that I'm a rich Darien lawyer, been there my whole life, is quite not quite true. I'm the only guy in Darien on my block, and probably in most of the town that's gone through 4 chainsaws. So I'm not your typical Darien lawyer, much as I like Darien, don't get me wrong. Why am I running for state party chairman? I am running because I have watched our state decline for 20 to 30 years. When I went to college, we were the fastest growing economy in the United States. For the last 10 years, we are in a race for the slowest growing economy in the United States, plus we have one of the worst fiscal balance sheets and situations in the entire country other than Illinois and Puerto Rico. We are in a crisis. We are in a situation where the only way out is substantial economic growth. There is no other way out of this mess. And the only way you're going to get that is to elect more Republicans. A lot more Republicans. It's the only way out for this state. We're going in the wrong direction. We're electing fewer Republicans. We're losing by bigger margins. Okay? So we're clearly going in the wrong direction. What is the result of that? You saw it in Hartford. What you saw was the Democrats committing economic suicide for the state of Connecticut over the last 3 months. They are running on an anti-business, anti-growth agenda. It is economic suicide. The only way we're going to beat this is to elect more Republicans. To do that, we need a strong Republican Party. Parties are not everything they used to be. They're only one cylinder of the engine now. But if you don't have that cylinder working well, the rest won't come into play, and you will not have the comeback that we need. So you have to get that cylinder of the engine working well. It's not now. My background is I am an accomplished lawyer, leader, Republican leader, and innovator. I am a partner in one of the largest law firms in the United States. I am the co-head of the Transactions and Corporate Group in New York of McDermott, Will, and Emery. We have about 1,300 lawyers around the world. I was the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee for the New York office. We've grown 50% in the last 3 years. I started an information services company when I was in my 30s. I understand databases. I was the leader of the Union League Club of the City of New York. I'm sorry, Jenny, what did it say?
10 seconds.
10 seconds? 10 seconds? Oh, we have 5 minutes. I was told 3 to 5 minutes.
Jenny, it's 3 to 5.
3 to 5, sorry.
I apologize. I'll make it quick.
Sorry.
So, at the Union League Club in New York, which is a national club with a national Republican club with national reach, I brought the club back from the standpoint of the political end of the club, with all the governors and leaders of Congress coming in again. I brought it back with strategic planning. I chaired the Strategic Planning Committee. I brought it back I also established a political fundraising network outside of the club. And I also was president of the club, and we had the biggest changes and progress in the facilities and membership in its history. But it's very important because I basically took a Republican institution that had forgotten who it was. We have one fellow member here, Cameron Smith from Sharon. And we reminded the Union League Club what it was, similar to what this party in this state has to do. Okay? We got to get our A game back. What are we going to do if I'm elected? And in terms of my Connecticut background, just quickly, I worked for the state party in college in opposition research. I served on a town committee in Westbrook. I was on the statewide advisory board for the Connecticut Republican Party under John Pavia. I helped Steve Obsitnik. I was co-founder of Imagine Connecticut, Steve Obsitnik. I went to the Romney Convention of Connecticut. I've been a donor. Up until JR was elected, I was a major donor to the party. We can talk about that later. What are we going to do different? We are going to build a Republican machine. This is damn serious business, okay? You need someone who knows how to build organizations, who knows how to build a sustained 12-month-a-year ground game, okay? We can't do this just around elections. We can't do polling just around elections. We need polling periodically through the year, okay? We have to build a machine. We need a much bigger data engine, leveraging off what the RNC has, but putting in a lot of local data, okay? All types of local data, from voting to news to everything else, to build an information machine that our candidates can use, that our RTCs can use, that is a weapon to compete with a democratic machine. On fundraising, the donors are on strike. The major donors are on strike. It'd be nice if the small donors were giving us enough money. They're not. There's not enough money there, folks. The small donors don't give us what we need, okay? We need a lot more money, and the donors are literally on strike now. Why? Look at the results in November. If you're a donor, you've made your money through credible plans and credible leadership teams. You don't have either now. That has to change. I look forward to your questions and to the closing.
Sorry, guys, I'm short of committees. To the merits, sorry.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here, and I want to thank John and Jenny for sponsoring this forum, because without them, this would not have happened. So, our host, the mayor, thank her also, and for her building. It's good to be back in Torrington again. I was here at Ryan Bingham's very first fundraiser I ever had with Angie and Tazio, some grove out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, but I managed to write him a check that day, and I still see Ryan every week or two, and great young guy. So I've been chairman. I think most of you know that. From 89 to 93, I was chairman. I was in the legislature from 83 to 93, and every problem that's outlined here is a problem that I dealt with, and a problem that I helped solve. There were days, in those days, we had 3 Republican congressmen. Now, today we have none, and that's by way. Some of that may rest on all of us. So, raised for the chairman, but there were no Republicans before he was chairman also in this congressional seat, so it's not all of JR's fault. Some of our problems are systemic, they are generational, they are driven by factors that are national and frankly, a little bit outside this room. Having said that, we still have a Republican Party, and we still have to have a direction to go, and we still need to be successful. How are we going to be successful? There's one thing that I have managed to do throughout my entire career, because it's not just been, I just didn't stop after I was chairman. I've been involved in political campaigns as advisor and operative for the last 25 years. The single most important thing you can do in a campaign is recruit the right candidate. I was talking to a young gentleman today. He used to be the executive director of the New Hampshire Republican Party. He claims, I think it's a lie, he claims that 80% of the job is recruiting the right person. I think it's more like 60 in my book, but you find that lady who's on the parish council, who is involved in the Girl Scouts, and you will go recruit her for state rep, and your job is going to be much, much easier. You find that fella who's the Little League coach for the last 25 years, who's involved in his community, you go running for mayor or board of selectmen or whichever you want, and your job is going to be much, much easier. You're going to need less time, less money, less effort, because they start with a natural base of support. And that's what I have spent most of my career as an operative doing, is trying to find the right candidate. And I have done this not just in Connecticut, but I've done it around the Northeast. I've made a lot of friends over the years, and a lot of fun over the years. But I will tell you, that's the single most important thing in a campaign that you can do. Thankfully, there are lots of people out there that are like us. We all know people. Some of us even think we are that person. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that this is not an impossible test. You know, I was told it was impossible 20 years ago. How can we do it? You know, we haven't had a governor. We only have one governor since the 50s. You know, a little brief 4-year medical cycle. How can we do it? And for 16 years, all we had was Republican governors. With John Rowland and Jody Rowe, that's all we had. I remember sitting with Jody Rowe when she first wanted to run for state rep. I was her state central committee man. She said, well, I want to think about running for state rep. I don't know if I'm good enough. I said, look, I don't know you that well. Tell me about it. Well, I'm the head of the Women's Volunteer Fire Department, the auxiliary. I do the Little League. I do this. She went through a list of about 20 things. She was more qualified than half the people we had in Harvard that day. And she wasn't sure if she was good enough. I think she did okay. They swore her as governor. I think she did okay. So that is where a lot of this starts. Yes, money is there. You're going to find as you're successful, it's easier to bring in more money. But you got to be successful. People aren't just going to give on a promise or on a whim. They need to see light at the end of the tunnel. Success. Thank you. Go on to debate.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to open it up for questions. Does anyone have a question they would like to?
Yes, I have a question for Dave. On your literature, it shows your literature was paid for by friends of Dave Mathis. Who are they? What is who's involved in the friends paid for Dave Mathis?
Well, let me just say that I got into this because a meeting was called in February by Dave Kelsey, who's the RTC chair in Old Lyme. And Dave called the meeting because he's a major donor to the National Party and to the State Party. And he called the meeting of a number of us, former candidates, donors, others, who to talk about what we could do to turn around the party. The view was it had hit rock bottom. It was an urgent situation. Out of that grew my candidacy, and Dave is a big supporter. So Dave is, I would say, the lead supporter of that. There are others, but I would say Dave and I are the lead supporters on the financial side of things. I'm not going to, I'm not going to prejudge if there might be others who contribute to that. But it's no secret that Dave is supporting me, and that I'm supporting me. I have the resources to pay for it too if I need to. Not a question of finding the money. So that's what it is. I mean, you want to know who all my friends are, that's a different question. But on the financial side, it's me and Dave, basically. I mean, there are a couple other people, but, Randy Nixon is another one in Old Line. An old friend, Union League Club member, started a major engineering business in Centerbrook, which is right next to Essex, about 30 years ago. Now he has 60, 70 engineers across the country. So Randy's one of the supporters also in that core group who's offered to be financially supported if necessary. And so that's all it is. It's not some big mysterious group.
Question. Hi, I'm Lynette Miller from Goshen. I have a question for all of you. I'm more interested in not who you work with, but how you're going to help save our state and also our country. But how do you see being able to, in general ways, if you could respond, how we can get more money from the RNC to candidates that can be competitive to take Senate seats or whatever we need, and how can we get our governor's seat back when we have such a failing seat, and it was our race to lose the last time around.
Go in order. Anyone you want to go? John?
The next person started there, so you
Okay. What was the part about the RNC again?
How can we help get more money from the RNC into Connecticut? And also, how can we make sure we win the next governor's race, because the last one was ours too?
Yeah.
We should have won that one.
So, being part of the convention process, it was the most confusing, loaded convention process that I've ever seen. It was complete chaos. And we had two candidates that worked from outside of the convention process entirely and bypassed the convention.
Right.
So what that did was it didn't allow the leaders that we trust within the party to vet those candidates properly. And the candidate that ultimately ran for governor was not necessarily the favorite of the Republican Party leadership. So I really think that vetting process is really important for all candidates to go through, so that we can properly have a vote as to if the candidate will be a good candidate or a bad candidate. There were some problems with Bob's candidacy, and this is not an argument against him as a candidate by any means, but just the process that he took in order to become the nominee. When it comes to money, we're going to have, I think what Dave said, and I agree, we're going to have problems with fundraising until we can gain back the respect and the confidence in our major donors. Why would people donate to a party that loses so often? It's a big problem. We have to start, instead of losing seats, we have to start to pick them up again. And we were so close before this last election on so many fronts to tie, really in the legislature. And it's all been rolled back. It's not a good thing. It's going to take a huge ground effort that we're ignoring, I think, and we've ignored for far too long. The ground game. We're underestimating the ground game. I've been part of a lot of different ground game efforts, and it is where elections are won. It's not all about money, although money helps a lot. But we need to have volunteers and inspire people to go into cities especially, and have people on the ground and introduce the Republican message to people that may not have ever heard of it before.
So, on the Republican National Committee, the Republican National Committee doesn't take us seriously right now. Until they do, they're not going to send much money in. Until we mount a serious effort to win elections here, build a serious round game, as Maps was talking about, and take care of our own house, it's hard to convince the RNC to pour money into Connecticut, even though a lot of the money that goes into the RNC coffers comes from Connecticut. Okay, $22 million was invested in the last cycle by Connecticut people in politics, in Republican politics. Okay? How much of it was invested in Connecticut? About 2. Okay, so about 21 elsewhere. So the money's still here, folks, but the RNC doesn't take it seriously. The president doesn't take us seriously. Okay? They'll take it seriously when we get in there, we start building a machine. Okay? I know people in the administration. People have seen what I've done before. We will have the support of the donors. There's major donors who are very excited about what we're doing. Okay? It's not rocket science. Donors will invest in a turnaround plan that makes sense with a leadership team that makes sense. They're not looking for miracles, they're looking for progress. Okay? And if there's progress, they'll keep giving. I am confident that we will have their support, and we have to earn their continued support. On the governor's race, a couple things. One, clearly conventions have to be run better. I've heard complaints all over the state about the convention. I wasn't there. The second thing is that there's a lot of things we can't change without legislation. Okay? There's some things we can change in our primaries and things. There's a lot we can't change without legislation. We will need to start lobbying on that and going in front of the legislature on that. And as we roll out our plan and as we start electing more Republicans, hopefully we'll get to the point where we can change some of those things. But that's not something we can change overnight. I'd like to get a longer answer, but I know I'm supposed to make this short.
Ginny's going to spank you. Let's touch on a couple. The ability to change our system, the election system, the calendar, the primary process, does exist. Maybe pick somebody who knows the Democratic state chairman. We can sit down with them. Someone who served with her in the legislature. Someone who thinks might be a friend. Someone who has the same problem she does. To find things that affect the party. Because while we have this party problem today, and we most certainly do. Then Locke is an inheritor, a successor, 3 years from now, that have the same exact problem we have right now. And they aren't going to like it one bit either. So we use ourselves as an example and say, look, let's solve a couple of these problems right now. And I don't think that's a question of lobbying. I think it's a question of having lunch with the Democratic state chairman and finding common ground. And that way, a bill will pass the House 151 to nothing. I don't need to lobby. I need to present to them why they want to solve my problem, but it's going to be their problem. RNC, clearly, they look at the Davis number that he gives, 20 million, 2 million. And they said, well, why should we give you any money? We've got all these donors already. Why don't you go get them? Why should Connecticut be a third world country in this process? Connecticut should be a cash cow in this process. We know this because we're getting millions of dollars into Connecticut. You need to go get your share. And the answer is that gets back message and success. That will come. Now, we're lucky we have a guy named John Fry. John Fry is an Ashland man. You may know him. Hopefully say something. But John has managed over the years to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars for special programs in Connecticut for the park, not for candidates. The third part of your question that I might have missed.
About our race was ours to lose for the governor, and then why didn't we have RNC money coming back so we can make a good fight on some of our senatorial elections?
Yeah, well, the way they view that is once somebody writes a check to them, they wrote a check to them, not to us. Yeah, they view that as their money, not our money.
I understand that one.
And as a person who's been on the receiving end of checks. And by the way, I'll tell you right now, you stand at these 4 gentlemen. There's no one over the course of their career who's raised more money for the Connecticut Republican Party and Connecticut Republican candidates than me. Period. By a long shot. I've, over the years, had electors who worked for me, millions and millions of dollars. Not even including the candidates, not even including my own races. So I'm not afraid of raising money. All of us know big dollars. They are no David and Matt knows. We all know those are nice checkbooks. It'd be nice if the board sat down, they're all our checkbooks together. They'll be understanding that. But thank you.
So there's just a lot to unpack and a lot of misinformation. Number one is, as far as the RNC is concerned, I'm one of the top performing party chairmen. I was selected to represent the RNC in Taiwan, so our relationship with the RNC is very strong. However, they make strategic decisions based on the president's reelection. They've invested a ton of money in places like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, because they want to ensure a 2020 reelection. That's number one. Number two is, when it comes to our Senate and House congressional campaigns, the funding for those races come from what is essentially a House Republican caucus and a Senate Republican caucus. And the only way to get their attention is we have to invest in our candidates. Bottom line, it is very difficult to take someone like Matt Ford. There's people in this room that I'm sure gave him $25 when they could have given him $100 because they determined beforehand that he'd lose. We are our own worst enemies in this state. When we believe we make a self-determination if a candidate is going to win, we decide not to invest time. We decide not to invest money. And I'm just speaking to you as real as I possibly can. The only way to get their attention and get their investment is we have to lift ourselves up. I personally raised Matt Corey $12,000. We paid for a poll for Matt Corey. We did a lot as a party entity. And the other thing I just wanted to point out, there's two things. Number one, Bob Margolis. We gave $5,000 for Bob Margolis to pay for the Absentee Ballot program with Chase callers because that's what he asked for. We organized thousands of calls to be made from other RTCs throughout the state of Connecticut. That also happened. I'll also point out, since 2018, we've had 9 elections. We've had 5 specials and 4 May elections. We flipped 3. We invested in all of them. We worked with all of them. So this idea that we're failing and all this disaster just isn't real. It's a tagline in an election. 22 races in 2018 were decided by 2 percentage points. 8 recounts. We were outspent by $30 million. And we lost those races, not because of money. We didn't work hard enough. Let's be honest with each other. We had headquarters all across the state of Connecticut that people operated. But the truth is that the party, and this is the thing that amazes me. You talk about Tom, how many people remember Tom Foley? Okay. Tom Foley raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, for George W. Bush, to the point where he was made the ambassador to Ireland. That's a plum position because of how influential and vast his network is. Connecticut has some of the most restrictive fundraising laws. That's what no one's talking about here. The most anyone can give us on the federal side or the state side is $10,000, so max contribution is $20,000. Then, I'm not even going to get into the whole financial aspect when you're talking about people that work for Wall Street. There's a whole other set of rules for them. Tom Foley, when his own governorship was at stake, his own personal interest, was only able to raise $1.8 million for the state party. I raised 1.4, while competing with Bob Stefanowski for his own fundraising. We're not addressing the fact, I love Bob, he's a great guy, but let's be honest, he was a woefully underfunded candidate on primary day. We had to compete with Bob to raise money. And again, I'm going to go back to this idea of finicky major donors. Does anyone want to take a guess how many donors walked away from us because of Donald Trump in 2016? How many people didn't give to us? That is a real thing that happened. We have to be very careful in how we spend our money, how we communicate our message, and what we do as a party. This is a real thing that happened.
What are you going to do when our president runs in 2020?
I'm going to stand right beside him. That's another thing I want to point out. I was the first party chairman in 2016 to be on the joint fundraising committee with the presidential campaign. I was literally one of the few that stood up with him out of 8 parties in the entire country. I was in the joint fundraising agreement. But we had plenty of major donors that walked away from this party in 2016 and didn't give to anybody. Didn't give to any congressional candidates, didn't give to me, didn't give to anybody. Some of them are in this room at that table. Because major donors like to walk away when they don't get what they want. And this is why we are reliant on small dollar donors and why you're important, your efforts all matter. I want you to consider that.
Question, I thought we could, I'd like to, Cheryl, you can talk about that, and I'm not saying that everything you said is wrong, let's start with that. But one reason you're in competition with Bob Stephenson is that you are unable to put together a board to dinner in a timely fashion, and in the historic way it's done, it's in the spring, so you do the fall and outbreak, I'm finished. Now you're in competition with Bob Stephenson. Because you decided you're going to lose in September, some governor that nobody ever heard of, because their RMC really doesn't care for that. But you know that already. Yeah, you can talk about Taiwan. They could have gotten you to the moon for a second there too. That's okay. The point is that these folks need to have a structure of the party that benefits the candidates, and that's not what they have.
Unfortunately, what we need to realize about the Bush dinner is why we always had it in June was because the party was broke. We were in a position of strength, and we had an opportunity to work with the RGA and Bob's campaign to allow him to have input on who he wanted as a speaker. See, those are
He picked the governor of Nebraska.
the RGA. The RGA and Bob's campaign was these are conversations obviously that happen in the background that most people don't care about. But the reality is Bob had input in that Bush dinner. And Dick, whether you want to, and I understand you've been party chairman before, but the reality is that oftentimes the Bush dinner happened in June because we were flat broke.
Many times it happened in May.
Or May, either one.
Okay, right, but that's not, look, there's nothing wrong with having a dinner when you're broke, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? Yeah, what I'm suggesting is that when you do it in September, you're competing with your own people, your own candidate. You're taking money out of their pocket, and you can see that by your ticket results. They only sold about 300 tickets for that.
It's also one of the most profitable. I didn't have
The food got worse, okay.
The concept that we can fund this party absolutely without the major donors, and by the way, the 22 million number was only the major donors, it wasn't all going to get it, is a fallacy, okay? JR's plan when he first ran said he was going to raise 1.79 million a year, okay? And of that, more than 1 million is for major donors. His program to increase donors on the small side donors, was a minority of the money, and he's raised about half of what he promised each year on average. The reality is the small donor program JR launched is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, it's a great thing. But you're never going to get the numbers you need without engagement and support from the major donors. The numbers are just, you've got to get that. There aren't enough Republicans going to give, $50 and $100 to get you where you need. You need the $5, $10, $20,000 checks to $10,000 checks from the donor community. You got to engage them again. Or folks, we're not going to have enough money to run a big ground operation and do the other things we need. It's just not possible, and you can't blame them. You can't blame them. There's a reason they're not giving.
They are giving.
Major donors?
Yes.
Okay. How much do you have in major
let's
donor
go
money
back
this year? How much major donor money has the Republican Party raised this year?
Municipal cycle always has
Just
less.
a simple
Dick
question.
will back me up. So
Simple
let me ask you a question.
No, what's the number?
How much did you give?
What's the number? I gave $5,000 a year until you became chairman and didn't call
Correct,
me
because
for a year. Don't interrupt me. Let me finish.
Dave, because you were connected to John Poppy, you served in the advisory committee, but also point out at that time the party was broke.
Okay. So?
But the advisory committee was designed to help Jerry Labrador raise money.
Okay,
The party was broke.
Okay, I was not on the finance committee, JR. I was on the advisory committee. No one asked me to be on the finance committee. I gave $5,000 a year to my party, okay? And then when JR was elected, I expected him to reach out. I'm not a $20,000 donor, I'm a $5,000 donor. It took a year for him to reach out to me. Okay? So to blame me for the funding problem, I'm sorry I didn't give more than $5,000 a year, JR, but that's real money.
I'm not blaming you, Dave. I'm asking you, when you're talking about major donors, and this goes back to my point about being finicky, you also didn't give in 2016 to anybody.
Wait a second.
So if you're going to...
I mean, last year, let's look at last year. I gave Bob Stefanowski and a bunch of candidates money all springwood. I gave Bob $1,000 as soon as he won, I gave Bob $1,000 as soon as he won the primary, the day after the primary. And then he called me on Sunday, 3 days before the election, and I gave him another $1,000. I'm sorry, I'm not the super rich guy you think I am, JR, but I support the party, and $5,000 and $1,000 checks. I know, and as Cameron knows, I've supported candidates all over the country, okay? And I was very involved in the Andrew Rohrback campaign. The Andrew Rohrback campaign, we have some people here who were involved in the Andrew Rohrback campaign. I was very supportive there. So this fallacy that I'm not financially supported is just not accurate.
Well, but like, and I described major donors, they pick and choose. For example, you didn't give to Matt Ford, you didn't give to Manny Santos, you didn't give to Harry Aurora, who invested $500,000 of his own money. I mean, so, David, I didn't leave
You're right. I didn't give to everybody.
Right.
You're absolutely right. And if that disqualifies me from the party leadership,
No. I asked you to serve the funds. I asked you.
Did you give to everybody?
Did I ask you?
Did you? Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tom Foley, and I'm not Linda McMahon. I don't have that kind of money.
I understand that.
I'm sorry.
But when we're talking about, and I keep bringing up the finickiness of major donors, that's a real thing. That is an absolute real thing. And one of my strategies for the just that don't know, he keeps bringing up that I didn't call for a year. That was intentional. Because what I needed to do, and he brought up the fact that you have to have a strategic plan. If I went to a major donor and said, we're flat broke, I need you to pay my electric bill. That's not a solid, I'm not standing from a position of strength. So what I did is I built up our fundraising so that I can go back to the major donor class and say, hey, we don't need you to pay and keep the lights on. What we need is to pay for X and Y and Z. And it becomes a much easier conversation, and I think they would agree with that. And that's exactly what we did. After 2015 and 2016, we were able to bring back major donors. Now, David, there's a lot in terms of fundraising when it talks to the restrictions, the regulations, who can give, who can't give. There's a lot involved with that. I had a woman that went through a 6-month approval process with her financial company because they don't want their employees to give money. It was for $1,000. She'll never give again because she had to do 2 separate interviews from her firm in New York. That's the reality of this world.
Are there separate rules for Democrats and Republicans?
It just seems like.
Well, they have the benefit of unions, and they have the benefit of unions, and obviously when you're talking someone who's a federal candidate like Chris Murphy, who poured $30 million into the state of Connecticut. But I'm going to go back to the fact that we were outspent, and I want to go back to the numbers. We had 22 races that we were lost by 2%. 8 races in a recount. We're still dealing with 1 in 120. That is this close. And we've had candidates with money before, right? We've had Linda McMahon spend $150 million. She didn't win. Linda's a lovely woman and a supporter. But money isn't everything. It's how you spend it, how you communicate, what you do with it. And I'm just curious, and I know, Dick, I think I know the answer for you, but I'm not sure the two here. I completely agree that this job is a full-time job. When you're talking about fixing this party and dealing with candidates and RTCs and chairmen and their needs, it is a 24-hour-a-day job. And Dick would agree because he's been chairman. Town chairman and candidates don't want to hear from an employee. They want to hear from the chairman. We're a small state.
They expect it.
Correct. And I'm just curious, what's the perspective on whether or not this is a full-time job?
Let me address that, because maybe directed to me, I think. So,
You want to bring questions now, I guess.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
14 seconds, Bob.
So, we believe that the chairman should be a person of high achievement with very deep experience and very deep connections in Washington and Connecticut and elsewhere in the country. We believe that, and the model we would propose here is a substantial part-time chairman. And when I mean substantial, I mean very substantial. The staff is all full-time. In my situation, I will be, if I'm elected chairman, I will be working probably 40 hours a week plus on this, but I will be substantial. It will be substantial, but I will still be a partner in the firm, my law firm, until the end of the year. I am prepared to retire from McDermott, Bull & Emery at the end of the year. I am prepared not to take any compensation from the party this year, and I'm prepared to take half of what JR takes next year. Okay, so I will be effectively full-time next year, even though the label may say part-time. And this year I'll be substantially part-time with a huge amount of money, huge amount of time. Believe me, I'm not going to do this to fail. There's no way. I got other things I can do. I don't need this job. I am not going to fail, and I'm going to put so much time in it, it'll be mind-boggling, okay? So just the fact that I'm still a partner in a firm for 6 months, I'm not going to blow up my financial deal there with this stupid, so.
So I agree with JR in that this is a full-time job, especially today in this political climate. I would leave my financial advisory practice and take this job. I think that it deserves the dedication of full-time, working 24 hours a day sometimes. I'm sure JR has done that. Thinking about things, you have to be in the right mindset in order to analyze situations and plan for the future. You know, Dave has a different perspective on that, I think just because of the situation that he is in with his firm. But I do believe that it's a full-time position. Going back to some of the things that we were talking about before, I think we need to stop blaming the president for our failures. I don't see the connection. I don't see the connection between what happened in 2018 and the success that our president is having on a national level. In 2016, we won lots and lots of seats just by having President Trump on the ballot.
Who's the chairman? Just curious.
So again, that was...
Rome was the chairman. The lady from Michigan.
Right. So stop blaming the president. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't Bob's complete failure either that, you know, what happened with the underticket. And I do think that we picked the right candidates. I think we had some fantastic candidates. We had Matt Corey, Sue Hatfield, Thad Gray. I mean, these are fantastic, well-qualified people that just needed the support. Now, I don't think that it's going to be that hard to form a state arm that we can use for grassroots efforts specifically. And again, we need to form that group and welcome in activists, because it's not true that every RTC is afraid of these activists coming in, but many are, and they're afraid that they're going to turn their RTCs into, you know, insane groups that people can't take seriously. So I agree that I think that we need to welcome them in some capacity and not have them necessarily be part of RTC organizations, have them be part of a state central grassroots arm. And in that way we can put them to work and utilize their efforts, because we absolutely need them. We can't be turning people away anymore. And so President Trump has had success on a national level, and the state has not followed in the footsteps of the success that we're seeing in so many different ways. And I think we can learn a lot from what the National Party is doing. One of the things that I've been saying for a while is that we need a state party platform. The Democrats have a platform. We know, anyone can go to their website and we know exactly what they stand for. We don't have it. We don't have the benefit of a state party platform that we can all agree on. And I think that needs to change right away. And once we do that, we can have a successful marketing campaign. We can go out and put up, okay, I'm sorry. We can have a successful marketing campaign. Go ahead.
By the way, you might get a platform. We've done platforms. We used to do platforms. I've helped fashion a bunch over the years in conjunction with the state convention. But I will tell you this, if you think that's going to get you agreement, that's the last thing it's going to get you. Because somebody says pro-life, somebody says pro-choice, somebody says pro-gun, somebody says anti-gun. Now we're going to take close to these things.
Those sound like Democrat ideas, by the way.
What, pro-life and pro-choice? That's not
Anti-gun.
I said pro-gun, anti-gun.
Where is everyone on the bench? Just curious.
All I know is there's going to be people who walk away unhappy. That happens in politics. As long as you're prepared for that, fine. But don't think that you're going to wave this magic wand and poof, we have a platform and everybody's happy. That's the last thing you're going to do.
And it'll be weaponized.
Okay.
Probably against us.
You had your hand up first.
This question
is for you, Jared. I wanted to know, with CT19 race of Bob Margolis,
Sure.
I had called Dennis Swanton twice, and I was begging him to find a candidate in West Hartford, since that area only has a small portion of Avon and a small portion of Farmington, and it's all West Hartford. What did the CTGOP do? What did you do as our leader to try to find a candidate there? Because Dennis said he didn't hear or get any support. So I'm just wondering, what did you do to try to find a candidate?
Well, Marion, I think
Hartford?
what's interesting about that conversation though is that I don't know anyone in West Hartford.
But could you have gone in and worked with the RTC chair?
Just let me finish. So I've done this I'm doing it with Sarah Muska right now. She has a candidate who they brought to me and said, can you convince them to run? By the way, someone that I convinced to run was Sue Hatfield.
What are you dreaming? You're dreaming.
Okay, so
Ann D'Angelo's funeral, a year and a half before the convention, I was sitting at a restaurant with Sue and Derek folks. They said to me, we're thinking about having Sue run for Attorney General. What do you think? So,
right,
don't think you brought the table. She
Right,
brought
but I'm
us up
saying,
the table.
why didn't
So
you
great
get into
job.
West Hartford and
But
go to
Marion,
the meeting and
my-
try to convince somebody to run there, because that was their area, right?
I completely understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I don't, you would have to bring me someone, to Dick's point, who's on the Board of Ed, who is someone that is worthy of running. So the question is it the party's chair, so am I supposed to go to a town and say,
But that was the only race, and I'm saying that you really should have gone in and helped them, because we at Avon, we went out and found Bob Margolis. Because our chair at the time said, we're not leaving that seat empty. This is ridiculous, we're gonna run somebody. So that's why Bob Margolis, thank God we had somebody in Avon who stepped up to the plate, he never ran before.
so
Great guy.
Marion, just so I understand
Yeah.
this correctly, you think the party's role is to go into a town?
It was the one race I'm saying that you could have sat down.
We have two
and-
municipal elections also
and you-
going on
But
too.
you should have gone in, at least get into the town and speak to the chair and the vice chair and say, look at, who can we get? Can we sit down? Who's on your board of ed? Who's on your board of finance? Or try to find somebody who would have stepped up to the plate if they got encouragement or knew that that was the only race going on, that you could have gone in there and helped or tried to, somebody maybe would have said, you know what? The chair came out and asked, you know what, I think I'm gonna run for that position. We couldn't find anybody to run for that. But we had no help.
And again, Mary, so I'm just really confused, Mary, because I understand the perspective, but at the end of the day, the local RTCs have a role in this. I don't know unless.
Yes, but you do too.
Absolutely,
You do too.
but-
It was the only race in the
Marion,
state.
it wasn't the only race in the state. We had May municipal elections also.
It was,
going on.
but it was a special election for
Absolutely.
CT.
Absolutely, which
Yeah.
is why we organized phone banking for them, which is why we organized, we.
Yeah, but we found a candidate, which we knew wasn't a strong candidate, was from Avon. We wanted you to come in, and Dennis said, I'm not getting any help, I'm not getting any support. We felt like it was worthless. So I'm saying, why didn't you go in at least, because it was the only race you could have gone in and helped him.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying, is you could have spoken to the people in the town, gone to their RTC, and gotten a group together and said, okay, they're the only race, we gotta find a good Republican.
So let
we
me
gotta
ask you a question.
stand-
Does anyone know what HERC is? You know what HERC is?
Sure.
And the HERC and Senate, so we basically are an ancillary group to that Themis's leadership group,
Okay.
which often is the point person for the House candidates. And so I understand entirely your point, Marion, but if you're asking me to go through a list of registered Republicans in West
I'm not
Hartford.
saying that, I'm saying go to the RTC meeting, work with the chair, he knows the people in the town, and sit down and say, look, we really have to find somebody here that's from West Hartford. And go in and work together, I'm saying work together,
Okay.
get together, work as a team to try to find somebody. And then if at the end you couldn't, but we found this guy, he wasn't even thinking of running. And he was a great candidate.
Avon's a great RTC.
Yeah, they are, we
10
work hard,
seconds.
yeah.
How many seats did we run no candidates in?
Listen,
12? 22?
So I do think the legislature is in some ways, is all important here. We haven't had the legislature any house in 22 years. I do believe the state chairman has to be proactive. If there is a gap, if we have a legislative race and we do not have a candidate, the chairman does need to get involved to try to help. He doesn't usurp what the town is doing or usurp what the legislative groups are doing, but the chairman should have some of the best contacts and best Rolodexes and most access to money and can go into that district and say, okay, I can put 10 people in a room who might possibly think about it and try to help motivate them if there's that gap. If there's that gap. If the RTC is handling it fine, so be it. But I think the chairman does need to be proactive.
Okay. Lisa?
I'm Lisa Joseph. I'm a member of the New Milford RTC, and I'm also the student support group for Facebook and everything else. I just wanted to make one point. The only reason why I'm sitting in this chair today is because of Trump, because I was a Democrat my whole life until Trump, and I'm heavily politically active in my community and where I came from 6 months ago, Syracuse. So if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have people like me sitting their butts in the chair. So, the 30th District and I brought in a national trainer, Scott Pressler. We did a lunch and learn on how to get out and do effective voter registration. We had over 100 people show up. We have all their contact information, names, numbers, motivated, ready to get out on the floor and work. We have a numbers problem here in Connecticut, and national will never give us money until we up our game. And one of the key points of upping our game is getting out into the community and registering more Republican voters. That is the key to growing this party again. And I want to know from each and every one of you, what is your plan to get people out and registering voters?
I think Dave.
Who's there? Mine?
I think yes.
Yeah, happy. Listen, I think we have to build a much more robust, as I said, always on canvassing operation and ground game. We don't have it now. In some cases, we have to pay people, okay? There aren't enough volunteers. In some cases, we may even have to bring in out-of-state people without access.
We have 100 ready to go.
Okay? So we have to be doing that all the time. If we don't do enough of it, the Democrats beat us in that game. And, we simply have to do it. It is part of the building a machine that works here, to have that happening, throughout the year, not just in the beginning of election cycles. You've got to do it continually. We're playing catch-up here. So it's a big investment. It's a hard thing to do. We have to do a lot of other things right, too. That alone is not going to work, and we have to do things right so more of those people are willing to go register, and more of those people are willing to be Republicans when we knock on the doors. But we don't knock on enough doors. We do not have enough face-to-face contact with voters of Connecticut. And that, unfortunately, does take money. It's not all money, but it does take money. In some districts, it does. Some districts, it doesn't. Some districts, they can't get people. So say the state central people. Other districts we can. But you have to do it one way or the other. And that does give you a continual flow of data back also. Okay, into your information machine, into your databases, leveraging again off the RNC, but our databases also. Thank you.
I think that, I'll try to be a little more specific on your answer, because I think it's an important question. The first thing I think we should be looking at as we're going to deploy these 100 troops out to the field is what towns, where, what precincts. And the reason I would do that is I think that precincts that are Democrat leaning that voted for Trump would be very, very high on my list, okay? Because I can steal two when I do. I got one off of their roll and one on my roll. So that's the first, I think analyzing where you want to be is probably the very first factor in correctly deploying your troops. Number two, we talk about money. It does take money. My guess in the case of this particular program, I don't think it takes a lot of money. What I used to do when I was chairman is I had awards every year. I had several awards, grants to RTCs. The requirement was that you build, show me your idea, build it out, show me the cost, and the idea be exportable. It can't be an idea that just works for your town. It's got to be something I can take and go from New Milford to New Preston with, and it still has value. And we used to work several $1,000s a year for programs like that. This sounds pretty similar. And the final thing is, based upon any success we have, we would then need to take you or those people and bring them to other towns too, to export the idea so that it has more value for everybody.
May I make one comment? It takes no money to go to a public event, set up a table, ask, can I set up a table for voter registration, have a couple volunteers standing in the middle of a public community event. It's free. All you have to do is have a clipboard and your voter registration. So to say that you need money to get these volunteers out is not true.
Assistance.
So, well, two things. One is, for those that don't know, in 2016, 55,000 newly registered Republicans. Thank you. You being one of them. Now, I will say that that has everything to do with Donald Trump. And I know that, but I will also tell you that every local RTC was provided a list of unregistered likely Republicans that you can operate off of, that we send to every town chairman across the state of Connecticut. We can also give you a list of modeled unaffiliated voters, which we can provide to you that already exists. Oftentimes, your point is it's a matter of having the person willing to organize and do that, and we can certainly talk offline. But though that data already exists, the RNC provides it through a system that looks at change of address and then also combines what they consider market research. It's like 3,000 points of data that already exist that is available to your local RTCs or anyone else that wants access to it. So that already exists in some regard. But I have to tell you, I do agree a little bit in regards to there is aspects to this that could cost money, or it should if it's going to be effective. But the voter registration drives are something that we work with local RTCs with already, providing the list and that data.
So, Lisa, I think this really goes back to building our brand again. So, what is a Republican? We don't even know anymore. We've got the National Party and we have the Connecticut Republican. We need to define what a Republican is in Connecticut. We don't know what it is. And yes, there's going to be some differences in opinion, but that's not a difference in values. I think we share all of the same basic values, and we need to identify them, put them on paper, and use them in a concerted effort for advertising. Now, in terms of registering new voters, we have to go into the cities. I don't know why we're so afraid of the cities. We can go into Waterbury. We can go into New Haven. We can go into Hartford. We don't have to be afraid of these people. We don't have to be afraid of cities, because there are so many people that have the same ideas down that we do. They just don't know how to personify it. They don't know what to call it. But it's Republican. We could bring them in. And we have to, again, stop running away from our president. Stop running away from the National Party values. Because we have to be who we are. And if we're not who we are, no one's going to want to join us. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Question. Thank you. Jim Silver from the Darien RTC. Let me give you a little preamble. There's an inherent dichotomy in these types of discussions. You have three people in this case who have backgrounds, and those backgrounds are important, but a lot of it is talk about what they're going to do with a job they haven't had. And then you inherently have the incumbent who has had a job, and fair or unfair, I don't think it's unfair. I think the weight on the incumbent is to defend and argue for the job they have done. And I've spent a lot of time trying to understand the candidates. I need to spend more time with you, Matt. But I think inherently I'm troubled by all the talk about what the current state party chair is going to do, as if everything that's come before has been broken, but it's not his fault. So, JR, I'd like you to be fair and give you a chance to respond to that. I looked at your background on the website. Okay? And what the summary is that you worked with 3 prior party chairs, the Pino, Jefferson, and Hampton, all things that came after Dick, I believe. That was a time of erosion in the beginning of the erosion of the Republican Party. Then you ran for state representative, you lost. Then you managed to shift Senate campaign, he lost. You then worked for the American for Prosperity organization, I'll come back in a second. Then you worked for Tim Herbst, he lost. And then you won party chair, but the party lost 2 elections on a statewide scale. So I see a track record of losing. I don't see a track record of accomplishment. But even with that, I would have expected someone with that lengthy experience in state politics to come in and hit the ground running. And your pledges for goals when you took the position in 2015 didn't talk about all the things that were clear what you could do. They talked about what you're going to do, and those articulated goals have not been met. So how can the electorate get comfortable that after having this lengthy experience, having 4 years in the position, have admittedly, I mean, to say there's not serious problems would be benign reality. And but yet now talking about, well, I'm going to do this. Why shouldn't we think that you've had your shot? We have to repair this party, and we need to do that with new blood. Can you just respond to that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, we do live in a blue state, number one. Number 2 is what you need
So we live in what?
a blue state. Now, what I will point out, now, I know you can shrug your shoulders, but you've never run a campaign, correct? Have you run a
Let's
campaign?
see, I'm president of the Tokenique Association. I won Southbury High School Student Council position a few decades ago. So I don't know if you consider those campaigns.
So
I know what the results
here, but I'm just going to give you an example of what you may not know about some of the stories that you highlight. Let's talk about when I was 24 years old, and I ran for state rep in a race. I was outnumbered 3-1. I raised $30,000 before CEP. We have candidates that can't do that right now. And I ended up with the endorsement in the New York Times, and I lost by 100 votes in the George Bush wave. Then I ran, and we can go through all these. Peter Schiff's campaign.
Tell me your website. You explain all that.
Peter Schiff was no one knew who he was. I was the first person to petition on before Bob. We were outspent. I think what Linda spent, $25 million, and we still managed to get a quarter of the vote. One of the ads that I did was ad of the year across the country. So when Tim Herbst, let's talk about Tim Herbst's race. Tim Herbst as a treasurer candidate, which is 5th on the ballot, and for those political people that know what this means, there's a drop-off usually. Usually your gubernatorial candidate gets the most amount of votes. Not in this case. Tom Foley lost, but Tim Herbst actually had more votes, which is unheard of in terms of when you're looking at a ballot initiative. Being in Connecticut is tough as a Republican. It's hard to win elections here. It takes shrewdness, it takes tenacity, because all around you, whether it's the unions that are outspending you, and they have the bodies, you have to be creative and clever. Now, I understand what you're saying in terms of the losses, but I will also point to 2016 where we won. What do you mean? We made gains in the House and the Senate.
You lost. Getting close is not a win.
But again, I'm going to point back to this. Let me ask you a question, and this is for the audience. Who won the 2016 election, Donald Trump or the Republican Party? Donald Trump won. Candidates matter. There's only so much that's within the party's control. Candidates, at the end of the day, make the decisions. They're the ones that have to stand up and deliver. Donald Trump won that election. Hands down. Reince Priebus and the Republican Party platform didn't win that election. Donald Trump did. Bob Stefanowski won the primary because who he was as a candidate. So this idea that somehow the state party chairman has this magic wand, that we're Thanos or Harry Potter, that just snap our fingers and everything falls into place, that's an unrealistic view.
I don't think anybody's saying that, but the fact that there's a long track record of coming close, not being successful, and coming close.
So that means, so David has hired a team that failed. Dick has failed. Matt has failed. So basically, all of us are disqualified.
No, man.
Your team you hired managed Tim Herbst's campaign. They lost.
They have a track record of success in their background.
So have I.
No, you don't.
I absolutely
saying
do.
that I hired a campaign person, and because they lost a race in their career, That
But
is the
this-
strangest, that is the
It's not
biggest
attacking,
picture I've
I'm
ever
just
seen in
pointing
my
out,
life.
I'm pointing out the point of his question.
It was about you, not about the
I
senior staff.
understand it. What I'm pointing out is every person has losses. I've also won mayoral races. I won legislative races. We have wins under our belt because of what we've done. Now, I understand you're looking at a sheet and it has 4 races. I've been a part of so many more than
Look at
that.
your description of your career. I didn't make it up.
But I'm trying to explain to you, I can't list all of them. I also managed 2 of Tim Herb's races for first selectman.
Why wouldn't you list the positives?
Guys,
Okay, but even with the background, again, you have had 4 years to make substantive changes. And what you're now
And we
talking
absolutely
about
have.
is some very fundamental things that you're going to start to do, like the recruitment process, like helping candidates. So you've had 4 years in this seat to do the things that didn't get done, and now you're asking the voters to say, okay, well, that was a learning process, and now we're going to start doing it. I just don't see it.
it's not a learning process. What I'm saying, and look, I understand your perspective, but when you're in politics, and there's most people in this room, they all have losses. Should we throw out every town chairman that loses a municipal race? Because I knew sir, Jeff Colangelo from Bristol, unbelievable town chairman, he has losses. Mary Ann Turner in Enfield, unbelievable town chairman, losses. You have Jeff now, but Brian Lassiter in Avon has losses. Well, there was a municipal side. My point is this town.
We got our people in.
I'm talking about through his career. My point is, Lou DeCilio is a great chairman in Stratford, he has losses. I understand
We're
this
talking
is
about
the
asking for another chance at a job that has not been successful in for 4 years.
I disagree with your
With a lot of
assessment.
experience that should have allowed you to hit the ground running.
I disagree with your assessment.
Okay.
Can I just defend Jordan, my campaign manager?
I didn't join any.
Jordan?
But I would actually like to respond.
Can I defend you for a second?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Jordan has won a national award, political award for local campaigns or state campaigns for unseating a senior Massachusetts state senator. Jordan has a very strong track record. She hasn't won every campaign. She's not the candidate. She's a campaign manager. But she's won a national award for her skills. So I'm proud that she's on my team.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we are going to go to closing statements.
How much time?
Say 3 minutes.
You're gonna now, Jenny.
What did I get? Did you say 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
We're going to start with Dick.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know we're all happy to be here tonight. But I will tell you that there's an item I thought we might get to that we did. And there's something coming up next year called reapportionment. All your lines change. Your state rep, state senate, congressional seats. There are 4 of us here. There's only one of us that ever dealt with reapportionment. I was co-chair of the committee at the time. I've served as a consultant twice to the committee. So when it comes time for Republican chairman to have input into the reapportionment process, and by the way, Connecticut is not like other states. Connecticut is a true bipartisan system. 2 House Republicans, 2 Senate Republicans, 2 House Democrats, 2 Senate Democrats. They must have 5 votes to pass something. It's a true bipartisan system. So now everything we do counts. There's only one of us that has that experience, and that's me. And I think it's important to have a seat at that table. I think it's important for the next 10 years to have a seat at that table. So when you're drawing those lines, they're going to last for a while. And we've done some good work in the past, brought some good folks in, made some good seats. They don't always stay. Sometimes you get a candidate who screws up once in a while. That does happen in politics. But I will tell you this. Today, this election, we have a chance and a choice to move in a different direction. And that's not casting a stone. If you're satisfied with the direction that you've been moving, then perhaps you should vote for JR. If you think we can do more or better or different, then perhaps you should vote for someone else. Because that's really the choice that the committee members face. So if you're satisfied, you know what to do. If you're not satisfied, pretty much should know what to do. And I want to, again, thank you for your attention. Have a good evening, and I'm going to save Jenny the problem of raising your flag.
hosting this evening, John and Ginny and all the RTCs. I agree with Dick. This is an election about whether we continue the path we're going or we elect for change. As I mentioned, it's been 13 years since we won the governors, 22 since we won the legislature, had control of either chamber of the legislature. Given the situation that our party is in and that our state is in, I do not believe we have 2 more years to wait or waste. Some people may be making that calculation because there will be another state chairman's election before the next gubernatorial. We don't have 2 years to waste in the condition we're in. The money's still here, as we mentioned. There's enough money in Connecticut to do what we need. And it's not all about money, but it's partially about money. We will be presenting the donors with 2, 4, 6-year plans, and we will make progress and we will get there back. We will also continue with the small donor programs. Make no mistake about it. There's some good things JR has done. I'm not saying he hasn't. But if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to get similar results. We have to scale this party up. We have to bring people with different skill sets and a record of accomplishment to lead the party. I have those skill sets. I do believe we have to start working harder in cities and urban areas. That's a long-term project. We're not going to win them in my lifetime, but we can get higher percentages. That's difficult, but we need to do it. Candidates do matter. I do believe I have a very strong track record of recruiting talent in my career, both in law firms, in the Republican circles of the club and elsewhere. I know how to recruit top talent. I can convince people to take the same risks I am taking. So I was interviewing for a White House job the week this meeting occurred, okay? So I put the White House position on hold to do this, okay? So I don't need this, but I believe in this. I believe in this passionately. And I believe that I can convince people to take the same leap that I am in terms of their dedication of 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, depending on which position it is. State Central will be asked to do more under my administration. There are a lot of good people there, but they need to do more. State Central is sort of a dinner club these days. Although there are a lot of good people who do a lot of work out there, the meetings themselves and the way it's structured needs to be improved. It's time for new leadership. I believe I can provide that. We will have a very strong team made up of the best talent in Connecticut, best talent around the nation, talent in Connecticut, Dick Foley, other experts out there. Of course, we're not just going to pretend like we know everything. We're going to use all the resources we can, as we do in my career in law, in business, in nonprofit world. Of course, we will do that. You have to do it. It's an immense challenge. It's one that I am eager and willing to take on. And I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
It's been an honor being here tonight. I don't come down this way very often, way out east in Coventry. We are at a critical time in our state's history, in the situation with our party, with our candidates having so many losses and being so rolled back so quickly, all at once, that we need to refocus our efforts. We need a new strategy. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, because that's insanity. JR, I give him a lot of credit for being the chairman. I give him a lot of credit for taking some of the abuse that we've given him today. I don't want there to be any bad blood. I think we're all willing to work together, no matter what the outcome of this race is going to be, because we believe in the party. And I think that's a huge message that needs to come across with us. We're not trying to destroy each other per se, but we do have disagreements, and I think that they are, in some cases, profound disagreements with the direction that we need to go in. I think that we need to go into the cities. We need to increase our voter base. We need to cater more to basic Republicans than Democrats. I see a lot of candidates that are going out and trying to persuade Democrats to vote for them, and they're compromising in ways that are hurtful to the party in general. And I think we need to stop that. And that's where this platform comes in. I understand that everyone isn't going to agree on a platform. I get that. But we have to have some sort of blueprint that tells the state who we are and what we stand for. And it's not until we get that we're going to be successful. And and we're going to have a successful marketing campaign. We might need $500,000 to do a successful marketing campaign statewide where we're doing voter outreach, where we are going on the radio and on TV and doing ads, so we're reaching everyone that we can't reach door to door. Working on Steve Obsidnik's campaign last year, and I saw a lot of people out there. I could not believe the number of doors that I came up to where there was that lockbox on the door handle with the key in it, because Republicans were leaving the state, and that's what blew me away. I knew that there was something very, very problematic with what we were seeing on the ground, and it is the ground game that's going to win for us. It doesn't take a ton of money, it's going to take money, but we can inspire volunteers. That's part of the chairman's job, is to inspire volunteers, inspire Republicans to do work. And we've got to do it, and we can do it. That's my message. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and listening. It's very interesting when you look at this in the grand scheme of things in regards to the role of the state party. I would agree with almost everything that was said at this table in regards to we need more money, we need grass, we need a ground, we need all these things. Some of that is there. It's not being recognized by my opponents, but it is there. We had over 500,000 voter contacts. We have 100 new delegates, 100 more delegates, I should say, because of the Republican turnout that we had in 2018. 100,000 more Republican votes than we got in 2014. That is just the fact. So what often happens is it's easy to have these grand ideas when you've actually never had the experience of operating a campaign, running things at this level. And what I want everyone to recognize, I don't blame Donald Trump for anything. But what we do know is that Democrats have gone crazy when you mention Donald Trump's name. We have a storm coming in this state, a hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane off of our shores in 2020. They're coming after John Frock. They're coming after all of our candidates. We need a captain of a ship that knows how to navigate those waters already. When the media is banging down your door asking questions about a secret videotape, when they're making videos about you being a white supremacist. That is a reality of being the party chairman. You have to be able to navigate those waters to protect our candidates, keep our volunteers focused and heading forward. And here's the beauty. In 2016, I'm glad my opponent brought it up. We won. One of my proudest moments was helping George Logan, Senator George Logan, in my hometown win. Out of nowhere. We worked with him, we helped him raise money, we worked on all of his messaging in his campaign. First African-American Republican senator in our history. And a lot of it has to do with Trump voters, and a lot of it has to do with those blue-collar roots. But this is an honest question that all of you need to recognize. There is a massive effort brewing. The media, the unions, Connecticut Democrats, Martin Louie, the Indivisible, all these groups. We need someone that has the ability to navigate those waters to make gains again. So, with that being said, what I want to remind everyone, I'm glad that everyone took this time to be here tonight. But in the municipal cycle, remember, candidates need you on a Tuesday night, on a Thursday night to make phone calls and knock doors. That's how you win elections. So I appreciate the time you're taking today, but remember, as the summer rolls on and they need people to do these efforts, go out and help them. Because at the end of the day, if you have a candidate that's in a serious race, the chairman is maybe 5% impact on that race. The people that are going to have a real impact are the people in this room. Through your effort, your energy, and your treasure. So keep that in mind going forward. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, wow, that was good. Once again, thank each and every one of you for showing the interest in coming out and showing the interest in the party. It is very much appreciated. And I want to thank these guys for taking the time coming out to Torrington tell us why they think they should be party chairman. I thought we had a very lively discussion, and that's what we want to have. You don't want anyone going to sleep in the middle of the day. That means we have good people, and we're keeping the interest. If you'd like to talk individually with these folks, feel free. I'm sure they're going to hang around for at least another 10 minutes or so, and thank you very much.